Hello and welcome to Capacity TV. Today we have Andrew Blum, author of Tubes. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So how did you develop the idea for Tubes?
I was writing mostly about architecture, about buildings, about 2009, and yet I was spending all my life online. I wasn't going to look at buildings anymore, I was just looking at my screen. And I couldn't get over the fact that seemed to be no physical reality back there. I wasn't in the telecom world at all. I went to look for pictures of the internet, and all there was this amorphous blob, this kind of cloud, although we didn't really call it a cloud at the time. And then what turned the corner for me was this strange thing happened where my internet at home broke. The cable guy came to fix it, and he followed the wire from behind my couch out behind my building, and then saw a squirrel chewing on the wire and said, I think that's your problem. I think a squirrel is chewing on your internet.
Right.
And I quickly got the image of yanking the cable from the wall, because if a squirrel could be chewing on that piece of the internet, there had to be other pieces that squirrels could chew on. There had to be some physical construction, something that I think most of us weren't thinking about at all in telecom. Certainly that's quite obvious. But that led me on about a 2-year journey to go visit these places of the internet.
And give us a bit of a briefing on what the book means and what it plans to serve.
The book is really an introduction, a sort of travel book to the physical places of the internet. So it's meant to serve a general audience, although I've heard a lot that telecoms are giving it to their employees when they come on board as a kind of primer. But it's divided into 4 parts mostly. It's about the internet exchange points, the places where networks meet. It's about data centers, it's about undersea cables, and slightly less so about the terrestrial cables. And I sort of go and touch these places and visit them and describe the people who work there and how they got to where they are.
And what has been the general reaction from the telco community?
The telco community has been quite supportive. I mean, it's a book about them for the most part. It's interesting, it's much more about telcos than it is about the internet. The reaction has been stronger in London and New York, for example, than in San Francisco. And I think it's always fun to read about yourself. It's a relatively small community. And I think also there hasn't been a book in a long time, or hasn't really been a story, perhaps since the famous Mother Earth, Motherboard, Neil Stephenson piece in Wired from 15 years ago that really looked at this big physical construction of the telecom world.
So what do you see as the next sort of phase of innovation for the internet?
Well, I see 2 things. I mean, certainly I spent a lot of time focusing on peering, and I think that what had been only done by some of the biggest carriers, I think, is trickling down farther and farther. So we're going to have more and more people talking about peering and more focus on the peering at the metro level even. And then the other thing, I think even more importantly, is the growing sort of roar of whether it's government spying or cybersecurity or just general machines going wrong in some form or another. The things that we read in the headlines every day, I think are going to kind of reach a boiling point. I can imagine that as happened in the chemical industry 30 years ago, as happened with cigarettes 25 years ago, there could be something of a change in tone for how telecoms take responsibility for what they're doing.
And what next for Andrew Blum?
For me, I've been still talking about telcos a lot, still talking about tubes a lot, thinking about a new project that's going to be about the weather.
Andrew, thanks for your time.
Thank you.